So,
Yeah, go on.
interesting one here.
Yeah, I think so. So do you want to hear? Should I give you my basic argument?
Yeah,
Basically,
sure. Yeah.
so basically, I think that I mean the argument for meat is murder. I think is really good argument, unless you are one of these people who, maybe for religious reasons or whatever, thinks humans are special. I mean, there's at least with conscious mammals, higher order mammals, I guess, it's hard to say that they, it's not murder to kill them if it's murder to kill us. So if you accept that, then, the meat is murder argument is valid. And the only reason we really overlook it is because murdered animals taste delicious. That's really the only
They
reason.
do.
But if we could get that, if we didn't have that overwhelming desire to eat murdered animals, and now we could just eat something that tastes the same and is just as nutritious, then I don't think we'd have an excuse to ignore that, and we'd probably have to do something about it.
Okay. So just before I give you my idea on it, you're not a vegetarian, are you?
No.
No. Okay. I mean, when you say meat is murder, like how strong are your feelings on it? Like,
not that strong, because I don't feel like a murderer when I took it to a delicious steak.
Okay,
But
good.
It is. But I still think you are, raising animals and killing them and stuff, and it'd be nicer if you didn't.
Okay. All right. So my whole thought on this is, to a degree, you may be right. That if we had something that tasted the same but didn't come from a thing that had to live a life that we had to kill, that may be a better scenario. But where I fall apart from it and where I think it wouldn't work at all is that, and not for religious reasons, because I'm not religious, but just from the pure fact of how we operate and how our brains work, I do think there's something special about us. And I think a big part of the reason of how we got to be this way and how we are special is the way our brains work in conjunction with food, or pushing us towards food. And that's a big part of what our brains are doing all the time, is where's my next meal? How am I going to get it?
And yeah, you mean like it's part of our drive or something?
Absolutely part of our drive, because it's our brain is, I always say, self-preservation first before everything. And the most important thing in self-preservation is to eat and drink to keep ourselves, going. And I think another issue with it is the reward centers in our brain, the way our brain works. We were meant to hunt and kill animals, and the feeling that evokes in a person, and then the feeling of eating the animal or the fish that you catch. There's nothing quite like that feeling.
Do you hunt?
I'm not a hunter, but I am a fisherman. And I've been told by many hunters.
My own food or anything like that, but I think it's fine as far as an activity, because you're gonna have to, if you eat meat, you're gonna have to kill an animal one way or the other. You may as well do it yourself and at least be a part of that experience, and then you at least know what you're doing. Whereas if you're just eating from a supermarket or from KFC or something, you don't really know what's even involved in production of that food.
Well, that's a big issue. See, I'm in a situation in my life where I have the money to really break away from all the terrible ways that they do the farming and everything. It's it's very expensive to buy all that type of stuff where it's no factory farming and all that, because that is the worst thing that we ever came up with as far as the food industry. The factory farming is terrible, and it makes less nutritious. It's just terrible. And that I totally disagree with. But I would never disagree with us eating real meat instead. I wouldn't want synthetic meat. I would not want it. And I think.
But what if it was if you could prove it was exactly the same, which is admittedly difficult.
Exactly the same. Yeah. exactly the same, biologically, you mean?
Yeah. So literally, I mean, this is a bit tough, but if you could put two of them under a microscope and not see any difference, and
There's no difference.
no difference whatsoever.
Well, that makes it a lot closer to something I would consider, but I still think there's something that we can't. Maybe not that we can't, but we don't know how to measure yet. And I think that something is the fact that the life force of that animal, the that animal's experience before it's killed. That animal lived just like we do. And in a way, I think that has some form, in some way, I think that ingrains itself into the food that it later becomes. It's kind of hard to explain what I'm saying.
Are you talking about like a chi type thing, or are you talking about more like mussels get used and therefore they taste better?
No. Neither. Like sort of like it's hard to explain really. Let me see. Like, I don't know if this is a little off topic, but somewhat in the same vein. They've been coming out with these. Do you listen to Radio Lab, the podcast?
No, but I've heard it's good.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. And they just did one very recently. They had this super genius brain. I forget the name, but talking about plants and the intelligence that they actually have, and that they've proven the way these plants work. Now, not individual plants having individual intelligence.
This is like how they signal chemically to each other and stuff.
They signal chemically. They operate almost as if a brain between multiple plants. They send each other different nutrients that one needs and the other doesn't.
Right.
They symbiotically, in a way, operate as a single organism. And I think on a different level, on a much higher, more complex level, I think so do we in the animals that we kill and eat. And I think it's all part of a bigger system that we really shouldn't be tweaking around too much. And I know maybe it would be the same and maybe we wouldn't notice it with the synthetic meat. Maybe, but I find it hard to believe that that's how it would go. I think we would begin to find that it's not the same level of fulfillment.
So what would convince you that that's not the case?
Well, if I ate it, if I had it and nothing changed and I felt the same and everything seemed normal, then I that would convince me. But I would also be worried to try it in the early going.
I would as well. I'd be concerned about being the first person to eat that stuff.
Yeah, even the first 5 years, because everything that comes out like that new, always there's a couple of years in, they say, oh, well, we figured out that this is doing this terrible thing to everybody, and we have to change it a little bit before we send it back out. So, that's one little thing. But I just think that there's an innate connection between human beings and the way that we get our food. And that, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why we developed into what we are now. It's the way our brain...
It's definitely... I mean, I agree with part of what you're saying. So I think the reason we developed into what we are now is definitely... We couldn't have done it without meats because we couldn't have got the nutrition from other stuff, not in the quantities that we need, I think. So I agree with that partly. As far as, like, some sort of sorry, I was being called. I'm supposed to be meeting someone in a few minutes.
That's all right.
So I just interrupted. As far as there being something that's not detectable by science at the moment, I don't know. Maybe, but it's a little difficult it's a little difficult to either say it's true or not. And since you can't disprove it, I would say probably I would go with it's probably not true, but that's just the way I default. But but you actually you gave some conditions under which you'd say that it is the same, which is if you tried it and you thought it was the same and it tasted the same and it made you feel the same,
like
and so on, then if that's the case, if you could verify that is the case, that it's exactly the same as the synthetic. The synthetic and the actual meat are exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that the argument against making meat illegal is all of a sudden weak? In other words, the argument for making meat illegal is stronger. It is like actually perfect. I mean, it's difficult to. I don't see how you can say that there's no benefit then to having natural meat, right?
You think there's no okay?
I
yeah.
mean, if there is no benefit, then there is no benefit.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Right. No, I understand that. Yeah. I just have I have a strong aversion to it. Like
you find it
just feels. Somehow. No, it's not even that. Like if you were to, it's funny if you were to put it in front of me, right, and not tell me, and I ate it and I couldn't tell the difference. I honestly believe that even if you never told me, I would shy away from it in the future. Being like as if, let's say, you gave me a cut of filet mignon that wasn't real, okay? And I like to eat steak. I'm a big steak eater, and but I kind of go through these like patterns. I'll like this one type for a while, and I'll this and that. Let's say I had that. I honestly believe, and I can't prove this, and I don't know any way to actualize this, but I think if you gave me a synthetic one, and without telling me, and it tasted exactly the same, looked exactly the same, I had no way of knowing, and I ate it. I honestly believe that in the near future, I would begin to part ways with eating filet mignon, just subconsciously. Subconsciously, my body would know, even if my mind doesn't know.
There was a difference.
Not necessarily, though. Not necessarily.
If there's no difference, how can your body tell?
Well, okay. If you're saying okay, all right, I see what you're saying. Like completely no difference whatsoever. So I don't think that's possible, I guess is my argument.
Okay.
That's my true argument. I don't think we can create something exactly the same. I guess that's the real crux of the argument. That worked it out better.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's a little difficult to do that. Certainly, like the first version of synthetic meat, I think I'm pretty certain that will taste like cardboard.
Yeah.
and then as time goes on, it will get, they'll make it better tasting and stuff like that. And then at some point, I think people will forget what meat used to taste like.
That's possible.
And then it's going to be like it. So yeah, it's probably never going to taste exactly how regular meat tastes. But if it could, and if it did, in that case, that specific case where they are exactly the same, would you agree that that it would be difficult to not ban it?
I would have to go beyond taste, though. I would have to have it be completely 100% genetically identical.
Like no lab can tell. Like you put
no lab
next
can tell
to each other. There's no way of telling them apart.
It is beef.
Okay, so in that case, would you agree that banning live meat would be?
If we could do that, then I would say, well, you know what? Even then, I'm not for banning anything. Let people do what they want. Personally.
Neither am I. So the other part of that is the other crux of this argument is that meat is murder, even though we don't like to admit it, because meat involves killing an animal, right, and sometimes putting it through a very difficult life. That's a bad thing. I think I accept that. I don't know if you do, but
it's a little upsetting. But you know what? I think as bad as it may be,
Josh has a good point. What would we do with the surplus of animals?
True. I think it's part of what makes us human in a way.
Yeah.
I think everything is killing something all the time. We just don't like to, and I use the term murder very loosely. I don't think you could murder anything but a human, and a fully formed human at that. I think murder is for humans only, and then everything else is just killing. And I know it seems silly, and it's kind of the same thing, but you know what I mean. That's just one of those. That's one of those ping words that PETA uses to
it is,
throw you off. Really,
But I mean, I'm using it in a way that I intend to provoke controversy as well.
Right.
But think that the idea of murder is that killing is bad, and it's especially bad when it's done to a human or whatever, because we have a society and we can't have people killing each other in society. It all breaks down theoretically. So yeah, maybe murder is the wrong word, but morally, it might be just as bad as killing a human, even though it's not called murder. If it's like, say it's a dolphin, say it was a dolphin, not a cow, or like a orangutan or something like that. We don't accept killing of those animals.
No, we don't.
To some extent.
That's because we're very hypocritical.
Yeah,
we are very. I know.
It's in the end, it's all made up. We act like we have logic, but basically we're just lying to ourselves.
Yes, and that's where I find the issue. But as you said before, if you could make it totally the same, then I would be okay with it. But it's got to be totally the same. Otherwise, I'm not buying it.
In fairness, though, half of the food at the supermarket is not totally the same as meat. Half the meat in the supermarket. What do you mean? I think we lost you there, Chris. Chris, it seems like your Wi-Fi is sort of
for a second. That's okay. I'm getting
closer
to the house.
It's part excuse, actually, because I got to head out and meet someone. So, my friend, it was a pleasure talking to you again, but I gotta bail. And anyway, we did lose you. Oh, you're back. There you are. All right, man. Okay, I'm gonna write a little note in the comments saying goodbye.
What's that?
Oh, I'm still here, but I've got to go.
There you are.
So we can continue this conversation another time, maybe.
All right.
But yeah, man, thanks for the chat. See you.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody watching.